do right here is go back. Way back. Back into time.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Celebrating 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling. This is the ReGeneration Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Sheldon Goldberg, Joe Matarazzo, and Kevin Castro.
Welcome everyone to another exciting edition of the NECW ReGeneration Podcast. Sheldon Goldberg here along with Joe Matarazzo.
What's going on, guys?
And Kevin Castro.
Hey guys, how are we?
All right, how are you?
Fantastic.
Joe, how's it going?
Oh, couldn't be better.
All right. Well, lots of things to talk about this week in the news. Lots of things that have been going on. Let's tick off a couple of news items before we get into our main theme of the week. As we're recording this today, we found out that about the unfortunate passing of Josephus, a.k.a. the question mark in NWA. No cause of death at this point has been revealed, but it was a sudden illness, apparently, and our hearts go out to Josephus and all the people at the NWA and so forth. A tragic loss, a very sudden loss. Question mark became one of the most over characters in the NWA promotion at the end there before the pandemic struck and the NWA kind of went on hiatus. So that's a big loss right there. Another big loss for the NWA in terms of their roster. But I'm hoping that as things brighten up, that they will recover. And again, a very sad loss of Josephus, and our hearts go out to his family and everyone involved in the NWA. Have either of you been watching Young Rock?
Yes.
Your thoughts?
I think it's hilarious. I think it's a fantastic way that he. I love the theme behind it.
Mm-hmm. Him president in 2032.
Right. And being able to get the stories out, I think the portrayal, the characters, the people that they brought in as everyone from Alpha and Seeker and his dad, and
right.
Rocky Johnson. I think they're spot on. I think the kid who plays him in college has the mannerisms down. The stories, it's kind of funny because my wife watched it and she was asking me, she goes, "Are these stories for real?" And I started laughing and I said, "I'm going to tell you right now," I said, "sometimes the true stories are way better than anything you could ever make up, especially in the wrestling business."
Right.
So, I said, the majority of these stories are just turned up to 11, I'm sure.
Right.
But a lot of them are probably spot on. And when it comes to his dad and Rocky Johnson, I mean, he idolized his father. There's no two ways about it. And I think it's a nice way of him to be able to pay tribute to the family and the business. And I think it's dynamite. I think it's fantastic. I wish it was longer.
Right.
Instead of just a half an hour.
Right. That is true. Kevin, what do you think about Young Rock?
I've only seen the first episode. It's one of those things where I just don't realize it's on until, oh yeah, that was on. Yeah. I thought it was a documentary. I'm just finding out now it's a sitcom.
Yes.
But seriously, I thought the casting was great. The guy that they have playing Rocky Johnson, I think, is spot on. Yeah, like Joe was saying, College Rock is pretty much, it's like if you went back into a time machine and were watching, just he has that persona and the mannerisms down.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like it not so much because it's a sitcom. I like it because it's going to get more eyes on wrestling.
Exactly.
I think I read someplace that the first episode in the ratings did better than all 3 wrestling shows.
Yeah.
So that, to me, some people might take it as a knock. I think that's great because someone might be watching that being like, oh, I want to check some of this out. Hopefully they watch something good.
Right. You would hope.
But
I really enjoyed it. It's not historically accurate. Like, for example, in the first episode, the Iron Sheik, the Junkyard Dog, Alpha, Sika, and they were not in Leo Maivia's apartment playing cards. That
Exactly.
They were never in the same territory at the same time. So, I mean, but there's poetic license and stuff like that. That's wrestling too.
I thought you were going to complain about the lack of cocaine.
No, I wasn't going to complain about it.
Wait till episode 3.
Yeah, right, exactly. But, no, it's an enjoyable show, and you gotta give Dwayne Johnson a lot of credit for getting that together.
Putting himself out there.
But I mean,
he's in real life he's likable.
That's the thing. It's
yeah.
We talk about charisma or the it factor, or when he walks into a room, he owns the room. Mm-hmm. And then from what I've heard about people who have met him, that he takes the time to make it feel like it's about you. Which I know people that I've known for years who don't do that.
I met him as his wrestling career was getting started. We had a Cauliflower Alley Club banquet in Tampa, and they honored his father. And that was something that Pat Patterson had arranged for. And I met him. I got a picture with him, in fact. And he's the nicest guy ever. And just really a nice, personable guy. And at this point, he wasn't even in WWE yet. So I said, man, you got it. Don't he said, well, who are you talking to? I said, I get around, but everything's going to be okay. Just do what you do, man. Don't. And he said, well, thanks for being encouraging and all that. He was really, really just a super nice guy.
Yeah, I think the show's going to do very, very well.
I do too.
What about his presidential run?
I'm going to tell you right now, if that man wanted to run, he'd have a damn good shot at it.
Right. He probably does have a damn good shot at it. I mean, hey, the previous occupant of the White House,
Right,
nobody thought he had a shot at it. And certainly Dwayne Johnson's a hell of a lot more likable than he is. So,
do you think he'd pick Jesse as his running mate?
No. That's the old kayfabe thing. The face and the heel can't run together.
That's right. It can't work. It can't work.
So this week on the ReGeneration Podcast, we're going to take a look back at the most influential tag team act in NECW history. That being the team of DC Dillinger and diehard Eddie Edwards, Sabotage. And it's interesting because, well, a lot of reasons. Those two guys really were difference makers in the history of NECW. We were talking just before we went on the air about how one person can make a big difference in a company. One person gets over and other things follow. Other things snap into place. And having DC Dillinger as the NECW champion, his charisma as a heel was just a huge difference maker in NECW. NECW really lit up with DC Dillinger on top. And I don't think, Joe, you were around at that particular time, so you know what I'm talking about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't know is DC and Eddie were in NECW before this, before the PWF era of NECW, when Bob the Knob Evans was the booker, and Bob did not like those guys. Bob was kind of jealous of Eddie Edwards since Eddie was going to Japan by this time. He thought Eddie was a little too big for his britches. Not the case. Bob had a tag team, 2 teenage kids that were called Afterburner. They were literally teenage kids. In fact, one of those kids had to miss a show because he had detention. That's a shoot.
Wow.
He missed a show because he had detention. So he put them in a match with these 2 kids, and these 2 kids, God bless them, they were good kids, were nice kids and all that, but they were boys, working men. And they got roughed up a little bit, and they complained about it, and Bob just chewed out DC and Eddie, and that was the end of them in NECW, until Mr. Evans went bye-bye, and then they were my first call to bring back.
Good call.
It was a good call, and it was the right call, because those guys were great. I knew they were great, and DC in particular just needed somebody to believe in him. He just needed somebody to give him the ball. And as we'll see in the little piece that we have coming up, part of the NECW Legendary series, you'll be seeing a little piece on the Rise of Sabotage and how that really kicked off. We'll be showing you that a little bit later on. But, one person often makes a difference in a company. Whether it's DC Dillinger, or whether it's the masshole Mike McCarthy, or Alex Arion at one point. I mean, one person who gets over tends to get other people over with them, which is a phenomenon unique to wrestling. I can't think of anybody else locally who really falls into that category. Now, granted, I'm not so intimately familiar with a lot of the other promotions and their machinations, but I can't think of too many other people. Maybe Rick Fuller.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But no, DC on top was the man you loved to hate, and people did love to hate him, and he really lit NECW up at that particular point in time. That period from 2006 to 2010, DC really was the big difference maker in NECW. Eddie Edwards too, but Eddie at this point was going back and forth to Japan, and so he wasn't as available as DC was. He was available a fair amount, but he would go to Japan, on a fairly regular basis, and which I think prevented us from giving him more of a push that he really deserved. As I said in a previous episode, I think one place where we missed the boat is eventually having a feud between DC and Eddie Edwards.
Yeah, that would have been the way to go. Yep.
Yeah, instead of DC and Brian Fury, which ended up at Bash 6 in a cage, which was a good program, but I think the DC and Eddie Edwards would have been a tremendous program. It would have been a much, much, much bigger deal.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So, what are you guys' thoughts? I mean, Kevin, you didn't really know Dave that well. You saw him a little bit towards the end of his life, but
yeah, from what I have heard, that was a completely different Daddy Cat than what was in NECW previously. I heard great stories. I heard horror stories. A couple of people pulled me aside beforehand and said, good luck doing promos. I honestly don't think I did any promos with them. I might have been in the room, but I think Al was the one that was more so producing those.
Right.
But I mean,
Al Basler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DC was, even then incredibly charismatic. I don't know if he felt comfortable in the role that he was in when I was there, because with the the babyface role. I thought it was a great story that we told, but it just didn't seem to click as well as, obviously Sabotage. That's a completely different animal. Again, everything that I've seen of that previous work, I was just glad that I was able to meet him and do some business with him. I would have loved to have, been around back in the day. I think that we could have had some magic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I probably spared myself a whole lot of headaches and less hair loss.
Right.
And again, I'm just going by what I've heard.
Right.
And it's not a knock on any of those guys. I think they're all fantastic. I just know that some of the people in the promos had difficulties with them.
Joe, what were your memories of Dave from back in the day?
It's funny because I knew Dave before NECW. Before he went to NECW, he was right out of Kowalski's. He actually knew there was a girl that was training there that was really best friends with my stepsister, and we didn't even realize it at the time. But I remember when Dave would show up and just to set up the rings, And, you know, he'd get in there and work out with a couple of the guys after getting the ring up just to run the ropes and just to try to get a little broken in. And, you know, he didn't really even have a grasp as to what, you know, DC Dillinger was going to become yet. He didn't even know, you know, where he was even headed. And then, then there was a gap where I didn't see him for a couple of years. And then I come into NECW in a completely different role. I'm not a referee.
Right.
I'm doing interviews and such. And again, I've known Eddie, the same thing, before NECW. And Eddie was one of those guys that always, whether he knew he was that good or not, he never let you think he knew he was that good. He was very humble, very respectful about things. And he and Dave always had a little bit of a kinship. And when I got to NECW and I saw what they were doing, and I saw this bigger than life character come out of Dave, to see DC Dillinger right in front of you was something I was like, well, wow, did he dial this thing in? Right. And he's got it. He knows who he is and who he's supposed to be, and he really, as a heel, man, he was good. He could get under anybody's skin. The addition of Gorman,
that was just pure luck.
But it was magic. It worked out so well between the three of them. Just gelled so well together. And then towards the end of my first run in NECW was right when he was starting to. Eddie was gone at this point. Dave seemed a little lost. He could still be DC, but it was difficult because even Gorman wasn't really around that much at the time. So he was starting to make that babyface transition, and it was funny because I'd be doing commentary with you, and Dave, for whatever reason, just was comfortable enough with me, whether he'd come over and steal my water or, you know, he'd knock my papers over. And he started doing that, and it just kind of became a thing. It was very organic the way it happened. And then slowly... Which in DC
Dillinger parlance, it's a compliment.
That's it, exactly. And the funny part is when he started to make the transition, he used me where now he was bringing me a water. He'd come down and he'd put a water in front of me, or he'd hand me something, you know, and give me a little high five or whatever it was. It was just, you saw it, and he did it slowly. He did it very methodically. Then I had left just before his full turn when he started to go babyface, and that's when Kevin took over. For a guy to be able to see him from start to basically finish, I think he still had a lot left to give if he was still here, and maybe not so much in the ring, but maybe in the back, working with the guys and you know, being able to help somebody along because he could talk.
Yeah, Gorman had said to me that he thought that it might have been a blessing in disguise what happened because he didn't think that Dave could exist without wrestling.
Yeah, I would tend to believe that. I know he had a very difficult time being on his own without Eddie. Eddie gave him that confidence boost. He just, it was almost like he was a little bit, not so much a crutch, but he felt comfortable knowing he was there. Well, he just felt a little lost.
They were great. They were kind of the yin and the yang of each other.
Exactly.
Dave was the personality and the bigger than life and the heel heat, and Eddie was the work.
They complemented each other very well.
That's why they were a great team.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why they were a fantastic team. And you know, what happens oftentimes in wrestling, in life too, you know, you work with somebody and the one guy makes it and the other guy is left behind. And sometimes for the guy that gets left behind, it's a difficult emotional thing to get used to, you know. The guy that you were so successful with suddenly becomes more successful than you. Although it wasn't sudden, I mean, that had been happening for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Eddie Edwards, absolutely, for my money, pound for pound, best athlete, best wrestler in New England wrestling history.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd give it absolutely second that one.
Why don't we take a look at that segment from the NECW Legendary series, which is a playlist on YouTube. It's a total of 12 videos. We're going to see this segment on the Rise of Sabotage. Let's take a look at this right now. and then we'll talk about it some more on the other side.
Belt now. Dillinger locks him up. Here comes Edwards. Oh! Walters ducked out of the way. Walters tosses Edwards up. Oh, Dillinger just laid him out. Dillinger laid out Walters. No referee to count. Referee George Carroll just coming around. Here's a count. There's 1, 2. Walters isn't moving. Oh my goodness! That's it! I don't believe it! Dillinger has done it!
DC! Yes, you did it! You did it! Come on, celebrate! Yeah! Oh my God! Woo! Yeah!
I told you!
Gorman!
I told everyone! Where's Gorman?
Come
Get
on,
in here,
celebrate
brother!
with us!
I told you!
Come on!
I told all you people! I told all you motherfuckers! I told you! For 5 long years! Easy and I have crawled! We've scratched! We've scraped! We've been blackballed in New England, in the Randy's itself. I told everyone, give me a crack, give me a chance, give Easy and I a chance. And what happens when I get a chance? I come through. Give me the ball, and I run and score. I'm king of the mountain, Sean Gorman. I told you.
You're the king of the mountain!
I'm the man of the hour. I'm the tower of power.
You're the king!
I'm only sweet. I'm never sour.
Yes! Woo! Give me some of that!
And it doesn't stop here, Eddie Edwards.
No! It doesn't stop there! Next up!
Iron 8, baby.
Next up!
Iron 8.
It's the Iron 8! And you know, Iron 8 first, the NECW Heavyweight Champion. I can see him now, DC Dillinger, the NECW Heavyweight Champion! Die Hard, Eddie Edwards, the Iron 8 Champion. I can see now, Gorman, can you see that? How will it feel to be the manager
I
of
told
those
all
champions?
you f***ing people.
You knew it!
I'm the man! Gorman, I'm the man!
We knew it!
That's right, you're the man, and let me just say something to you rotten people out there. The destiny of the Dynasty of Champions has finally been fulfilled, and tonight proves it. If you want to know where your rank and stand in the world of independent wrestling, take a look at where your name is underneath DC Dillinger and Eddie Edwards. It's a whole new era in New England Championship Wrestling.
So a look at really the turning point and how Sabotage really got started in NECW, or really, I shouldn't say get started because they had already been in NECW before, but what really lit the spark right there, that particular match in Framingham where DC won the title in a tag match. The stipulation was if the champion lost the fall, he would lose the title. And that's how DC became the NECW champion. And it was a real turning point for NECW, a turning point for DC Dillinger, the launch of Sean Gorman's Dynasty of Champions, and a real turning point for NECW. That's really where the hot run really started. And Kevin, what were your thoughts? Because you weren't around at the time, so you're looking at this from pretty much fresh eyes.
So, with this particular video, I love the fact that you showed just enough to get the story across. So just going in there, maybe not knowing what was leading up to everything, everything was told. As far as the promo goes, the thing that I loved about this is that that was a one and done, because with the pouring of the Sprite, the pouring of the water, you can't just do that and then go back and do it again. Right. So that was one of my first takeaways, is that everything that they said was to spur the moment, feeling the energy, going off pure emotion.
And a lot of it was true.
Absolutely.
They had been blackballed in a lot of places. That was not a joke.
One of the things that I kind of think is funny is I've never really been a big fan of swearing in promos. Mainly because I think it's kind of cheap heat. Yep. I think it's funny because I love ECW, and that's pretty much all it was. But it's something I've never sworn in any of the promos that I've done, and I discourage people from doing it because I just think that it's lazy. On the flip side of it, that was DC. Everything that, again, going back to that emotion, I don't think that he went in there going, I'm going to swear to pop the boys. I don't think he was saying, I'm going to swear to get heat. I think he was just speaking from the heart, speaking from that adrenaline, speaking from emotion. So that, to me, I would give it a buy, because that was real. And just as it said in the video, that Gorman had just been put together with them.
Right.
Shortly before that, and the fact that they clicked, and he did not stutter, he didn't stammer, he didn't pause when everything else, DC and Eddie are yelling and wooing and pouring stuff all over him, and he was on point with everything that he said. And it just showed that the chemistry between the three of them was so natural, it was so organic, and it was probably one of the strongest bonds that I've seen in any faction, whether it's New England, worldwide.
I'll tell you something interesting. Before the match started, I pulled DC aside, and I said, Dave, this is your moment. This is where you belong. This is where you deserve to be. I said, I want you to know that I believe in you. And that was all I had to say to him. He just took off like a rocket from right there. And I meant that very sincerely. I really felt that he was, all he needed was somebody to say, I believe in you. And sometimes in a talent, that's all you need to do, is just believe in them. It's a big part of being a promoter, is being able to give that kind of positive reinforcement to people. And being able to give a person a spot that they can blossom in. It's hard to, it when you see it. It's hard for me to explain it in words, but I think the best way that I can say it is, when you see it, when a guy is going to take off. When all he needs is just to be told that, hey, you're on the right path. This is your time. Go take it.
That's true in life, not just in wrestling. The best bosses know how to motivate their people. They know how to find the talent of their people, and that's just the makings of a good boss. Right. You do that for your friends. You pick your friends up and have them, do the same. So it's a good lesson for everyone out there to learn.
Yeah. Sometimes, this is an ego business, and there's people who love to just crush other people to make themselves look good or to make themselves feel good. But that's not what makes wrestling successful. What makes wrestling successful is the ability to elevate people. It's not the ability to tear them down, and that doesn't do anybody any good. That's why we talked about beyond wrestling, how they don't pay the local guys, and they tend to dump on people, they tend to dump on talent. That's totally the wrong thing to do, in my opinion. I mean, I'm here to build people up. I'm not here to tear people down. That doesn't get you anywhere. Tearing people down, anybody can tear somebody down. It's being able to build them up. That's talent. That's the ability to take people and make them into something and make them realize their potential. That's what talent is. It's not taking big names and putting them out there. They've already made it. To me, that's what promoting is. You're a promoter. You take people and you promote them.
Well, one of the things to think of, too, like you were just saying how it's an egocentric business, as egocentric as it is, a lot of the guys are extremely fragile, too.
Very sensitive. Yes.
There's always that little bit of doubt, and sometimes all it takes is, like you were saying, I mean, you can believe in somebody all day, every day, but if they don't know that you believe in them, it doesn't mean anything. Unfortunately, well, I was just going to say, there are some people where you can pull them aside, and I would never put anybody in a situation that I didn't think that they would handle well and excel in. And, there are just some people where they can't, I don't know if the doubt is so big, or I don't want to say they're afraid of success, because, there
are people that fall into that category.
Yeah, there are.
I've been in business with some of them.
But it's frustrating to a point, because you can see it in people and trying to get them to accomplish all that they're capable of.
I go back in time in my mind sometimes to who could I have encouraged that I didn't encourage? I don't come up with too many names, but some people just have a chip on their shoulder, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Bob Evans had a chip on his shoulder. He just, was a scammer, and he couldn't get away from that. Much as I tried to straighten him out, he was never going to be straightened out. He was smarter than me, in his opinion. He was better than me, in his opinion. And he would rather take advantage of somebody that made him feel good, as opposed to helping somebody and building them up. So
now, after DC took off,
right,
after you put the belt on him and his personality came out, Sabotage exploded, all the places that blackballed him, were they knocking on his door now? Was he getting more bookings, or was he getting more interest?
I really don't know. I didn't pay too much attention to what his bookings were outside of NECW. I know he had them. I know he worked in a number of places. I know that he complained to me once about how Top Rope had screwed him over on money. I know of a couple of small gigs that he did for different people. I think there were a lot of people in the area that were trying to take advantage of the success that he had with us. I don't know if he worked too much for Big Time, if at all.
I don't remember him, but that doesn't mean he didn't.
Right. But nobody could really capture what he had done in NECW. That couldn't be replicated.
Just some of the things that I've observed was that there would be people that, would have been slept on by other promotions, or, just in general, and then, we would do something with them, and then all of a sudden, everybody wanted to book them. Yeah.
That's a recurring pattern in NECW.
It just seems, with the amount of promotions that were around, I don't know if they would still be around, depending on what happens on the other end of the current apocalypse. It was just the same matches, regardless of what company. It was the same people working the same people. I would say same storyline, but some of them didn't even have storylines. It was just, spot show.
Right.
But I was just curious as to how many people, completely dismissed DC, and then
all of a sudden change their minds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And if he, took advantage of it, or if maybe he still had that chip on his shoulder. Maybe he was bitter about it. I wasn't
he was loyal to NECW. He knew that he was believed in, so he was loyal to NECW. I would say that whatever else he had going on, that wasn't going to supersede what he had with us. But, that's unusual, too. Many times you believe in somebody and you push that person, and that push goes to their head, and they start believing that the push is all about them and not about the fact that you pushed them.
Right.
It happens quite a bit.
They stop believing the hype.
Oh, yeah. How many times have I heard people that work for us say, oh, I'll work anywhere. I'll work for anybody. And people that we pushed hard.
Yep.
On the flip side, the fact is that, we're only running once or twice a month. So what are they going to do the other 28 days? You can't expect them to sit home and twiddle their thumbs and wait for us to run again. I mean, if you're going to demand loyalty from people, you got to be able to employ them. And none of us can do that. So, we're we sort of made our own bed with this stuff. It's hard. Being an independent promoter is hard. Because in order to be successful, you have to get behind people. But the flip side of that is that if you're successful in getting behind those people, many times that blows up in your face. Many times those people start to believe that it's about them and not you, that you had no role in pushing them or helping them or bringing them along, and you end up getting put on the back burner. Or that push really, really works, they get signed, and all of a sudden they're gone, and all that work that you did to bring them to that point is all for naught. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around. I mean, on the one hand, it's an indicator of success that you've done something right. But on the other hand, you're not the one that's getting the contract. You're not the one that's reaping the reward of that. And we're not saying that we deserve any of that reward, but nonetheless, you spend time building somebody up and pushing them and promoting them and putting them in matches and giving them angles and giving them programs and doing publicity on them and so forth, and then it's gone. I mean, think about that.
Isn't the current etiquette, though, when that happens, to go on social media and say that you were responsible for it?
Lots of luck with that.
Right, exactly.
Don't hold your breath.
We wish them luck in all their future endeavors, though.
We do, yes. No,
we always have, though.
Yeah. I mean,
But see, one of the other things, too, when somebody does start to take off and they you give them the ball and they score, I love it when the rest of the locker room decides, we're going to keep up with them. And now it's elevating everybody else because everyone else wants to up their game to either get more attention on themselves, get a better position in the company. It's just when everybody is working for the greater good, whether it be for the company or, for one particular show, it's just such a good feeling when you're running on all cylinders. You're getting the best out of everybody, and everybody just wants to. I don't want to say essentially take their spot, but at least be close enough to get some of that shine.
Right. It's the old saying, "A rising tide lifts all boats."
Right.
One person gets over, and the ball starts rolling, and other people have eyes on them that didn't have eyes on them before. So there's a trickle-down effect. It's like, when one guy gets hot in the territory, everybody benefits. The houses go up, more eyeballs are seeing people, other guys have a chance to get over at their level. That's just how wrestling works.
That was one of the I guess I'll say most fun, but it's like when I first started doing the promos and trying to get people in the back was, like pulling teeth. Yeah. And once we got on WMFP and McCarthy and I hit it off when we were hitting gold with promos, all of a sudden there was a line. People wanted to do them. And it was great because we could get in there, we could be creative. Some of the people that you didn't think would have the character down or aspect of the personality, being able to get that out of them, that was incredibly satisfying for me.
Yeah, and when a company gets on TV, that's a big deal. I think a lot of people who worked for us at that particular time, the WMFP period, did not think it was as big a deal as it was, unfortunately. But when you're able to turn your TV on Thursday night at 12:30 a.m. and there you are, it brings a whole different atmosphere to what goes on in the back. Now people know that people are actually watching what we're doing on a large scale, and they've got to step their game up. They've got to represent.
That's it. The bar's been lifted.
Exactly.
It's a whole new element. Yeah, that's been brought there. It's funny when we were talking about doing the promos and stuff. When I came into NECW, that became my role, much like what you were doing, Kevin. I'd start doing the interviews and such. And I didn't, as long as I had known those guys, I don't think I did too many interviews with them. It was mainly them cutting their own with Gorman. And I don't think I got many opportunities to interview DC and Eddie and Gorman.
Right.
But they didn't need me. I think that's the main thing. They probably would have I would have looked out of place, I think. I would have loved to have done something like that, but it was unnecessary at the time. I think had I stuck around as DC was now turning into and pulling his babyface run, I think I would have had a much more prominent role working with him interview-wise.
Right.
I think it was, we had some plans, we had some good ideas and stuff that just never got to happen, unfortunately. But I mean, even go to that first, the one we just watched. After he's sitting back there and there's Gorman. First time really with them, right? That was the first time.
That's right. That was his first promo with them.
He's selling his neck.
Yeah.
He doesn't, just like Kevin said, he didn't miss a beat. He just cut that promo. He's holding his neck. He's selling. They're pouring water on him, Sprite on him. And I don't even know how to describe it. His calmness, his collectiveness, stealing
grace
everything.
under pressure.
It's just amazing. He didn't get rattled. And that's very easy to get caught up in that moment and get rattled by that, especially when you get DC. DC's bigger than life anyway. And he's screaming and yelling. And Eddie, a little out of character for Eddie to be that loud. Eddie was a little bit more intense. But they were elated. And he he was that glue for the two guys going crazy. And he still stole it in the background. He's still holding his neck. He's still selling and wincing in pain and never missed a beat. It goes to show, I hate to be blowing smoke up his ass the whole time here, but he was a talent and a half.
Yeah, and he truly was the MVP of NECW.
Yeah, absolutely.
DC may have been the top guy, but Gorman just took his heat and amped it up by 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Just by him being there.
He was definitely a booster. That's for sure.
He absolutely added to that whole package. Can you guys think back on individuals that had a big effect on a local company other than in NECW?
Someone that they would have built a company around?
Yeah, someone who just kind of lit it up,
Oh, yeah. When I was doing shows in Fairhaven, Chris Pyro. 100% Chris Pyro.
Yeah.
The charisma that he has, the moment he would walk through the curtain, the place would explode.
Fred Curry is one of those guys.
Too. Yeah.
Oh, go. Chris Pyro?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
What was kind of funny is when we were doing the shows in Fairhaven, a lot of times people would shit all over those shows, and then things started to get hot. We were filling the building completely. We had a slow burn there was a group that I had that was called Team Talent that Chris Pyro was a member of, and a young Vinny Marseglia was a member of, back when he was Vinny Nero. And we just started a little tease that there was animosity between the two of them. And we built it up and built it up and built it up. And the night that we were finally going to have the two of them in the ring, sold out, legitimately standing room only. and your former business partners were in the audience. There was people, from Top Rope that were in the audience. And then all of a sudden, all the guys that we had were showing up on NECW TV. They were getting booked everywhere else.
Right.
So it's you never know what it's going to take to get somebody to explode.
Right.
And like you guys saying, Pyro in NECW, people loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did a series of promos when we were getting ready to go on Comcast Sportsnet. And we had Pyro as the subject of some of these promos. We had Max Bauer as the subject of some of them, where Pyro talks about being on Comcast Sportsnet as his dream come true. What I wanted to do with that series of promos building up to our TV debut was to give people the impression that this is something different. It's not like the wrestling that you see on Monday night. This is local people living out their dream. I wanted to give people a different expectation of it. So that while what you see, it's pro wrestling, but there's a very real story behind it. There's a very real thing of people, realizing their dream, that these are local guys doing something local, and it's being elevated to a bigger level. And I remember when we did our first taping after those promos had aired, and Pyro came to the curtain, and the place just erupted.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that those promos had an effect because you could hear it. He was one of the most over guys on the show. Him and Max Bauer at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could be twins.
Right.
Oh, obviously. It's like looking into a mirror.
We're Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger when you need them.
Right. Exactly.
But other than that, I can't really think of anyone that you would build everything around.
In the history of NECW, I can think of several. Max Bauer was another one. And that happened
Max Bauer, definitely.
That was something that we did not expect. He just kind of, got a reaction and took off. DC, of course, we've already talked about. Mike McCarthy.
Absolutely.
That took time to build, but McCarthy, absolutely. I think Brad Hollister was someone who was,
I was just going to say that.
Built. Yeah. Toto Loco was well booked, and you were going to say, Kev?
Jeremy Prophet.
Jeremy Prophet, absolutely, yeah. If we had more time with Jeremy, we could have done big things with him. Wagner Brown, certainly.
Yeah, Slick, definitely.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have good talent, but we also had good booking. We were able to put these guys in angles and programs that built them up and made them top guys. Looking back on it, even the women, Mercedes Martinez, Nikki Rocks, Ariel, these are people who, were successful in their roles, in part, not to take anything away from the talent, which is obvious, but they were booked well. Alexis Nevaeh.
Yeah, perfect example right there.
If there's anything to be said about NECW and its strong points, booking's got to be one of them, because these people were over who were not over anyplace else before. Alex Arion. People were coming to that Good Time Emporium with signs for him, and when did that ever happen before?
Right.
It didn't. Giving people a platform and is part of what a promoter does, and giving them the opportunity to succeed. Maverick Wild was probably the one NECW champion who deserved better booking than he got. That was Bob Evans booking him at that time, and Bob did not do a very good job of booking him. Brandon Locke was not well booked.
No.
That was a knee-jerk reaction.
Good talent.
We talked about that.
Good talent should have gone a lot further, and
right. He just wasn't prepped for the role.
Right.
That top talent makes a big difference. And it's a combination of things. It's a combination of the talent themselves, your ability to encourage them, and your ability to book them into that top spot and prep the people to accept them in the top spot. Not easy things to do, but they are doable if you do it right.
And trust.
Yeah. Trust is
Yeah,
important.
that's it.
They
That's
have
huge.
to trust us. We have to trust them.
Right.
And you can tell when that's, all wheels are in motion.
Right. Sean Burke was a very good champion.
Yes.
He's a guy that I think benefited more from his push in NECW than he would like to admit. When you're on top in a company that is on television and people can see your stuff week after week, that's a help.
Well, there was a lot of ideas that I remember I had during Sean Burke's run. It was almost, there was so much going on towards the top, because it was Burke, there was Prophet,
Antonio Thomas.
Johnny Thunder was in the mix for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just remember coming up with ideas, stuff that we never even got around to using. Whether it because, injuries or people's availability.
Right.
But that's the thing that, if people knew where the story was originally supposed to go versus where it ended up. Sometimes that's a fun or an interesting story.
Right. Like Brad Hollister was not supposed to be NECW champion when he became champion. Just the guy we wanted to put it on didn't want it. And so we did a little Cinderella story. We were in the process of building Brad Hollister up. And then Wagner Brown wrecked his knee. He was champion at the time. Had to surrender the title. And we originally wanted to go back to Sean Burke, and Burke wanted to work Chikara and some other stuff, and he didn't want to be locked in as champion. And so,
I still think he was hurt during that Iron 8. Because I want to say that he faced Brad Hollister in the first round.
Yes, he did.
It was a very short match, because I want to say that it wasn't so much, or at least not to my knowledge, that he didn't want it. Right. I didn't think that he was healthy enough to continue, because I don't remember if it was his ankle or there was something where he basically said he came in.
He had broken his ankle before.
So I don't know if it was still healing or if he re-injured it, but I do remember the conversation of I can't do much, and it was something very quick and easy.
And I remember having the discussion with Burke about taking the title, and he didn't want it at that point. He wanted the option to do other stuff, and that was how he put it to me, as I remember it. But you could be right, Kevin. He may have had an injury, but Burke was the one that said let's go with Brad Hollister, and since we had been building him up,
it all made sense.
It all made sense. Yeah, it was one of those things. It was a Cinderella story, and that's a great story if you have the right guy and you tell it the right way. And we had the right guy and we told it the right way.
You gotta have the time to, you gotta be able to pace that just right.
Kevin, what were your thoughts on Antonio Thomas as champion?
That was the first time that I had met Antonio Thomas. I was incredibly excited to work with him, mainly because of the history that he had. In NECW, coming off his WWF run, WWE run, he was training a lot of the guys that we were using at the time. I don't think that he had, like we were just talking about, the confidence in himself. It was almost as if, regardless of everything that he accomplished, he just didn't seem to believe in himself. I guess that's the only way that I can really describe it. I think there was a lot of doubt. I think there was a lot of apprehension in things that he was doing. There was a couple of times where, again, if he would just go with straight emotion, his promos were fantastic.
Yeah.
But he almost seemed to be holding himself back.
I would absolutely agree with that. It was a sad period for me because I love that kid. I thought he was terrific from the very beginning. That's why I gave him the name of Promise, because I knew that he was going to be something. I think that his experience in WWE really kind of beat him down.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. I know he's had some emotional issues. I mean, he just recently got married, which I'm happy for him. And I saw some of his work in Beyond as Thomas Santel. I mean, in the ring, bell to bell, you can't argue with his work. I mean, he's a great technician. He's a great athlete. You know.
Well, he's amazing in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's that essential confidence that a guy needs to be the top guy. And, you know, I would have hoped that he would have become more involved with what we were doing and not less. You know, I would have loved it if he said, hey, you know, can I sit in on some of the booking? Can I, you know, offer some suggestions or, you know, and I would never get them. I would have to say, well, what do you think about this? You know, I like to do that with guys. You know, I wanted to give them room in their matches to insert some of their own creativity. I think that's essential when you're booking wrestling. You know, you can't book things too tightly because you take the people's personality out of it if you do that. And, you know, he's a veteran talent by that point. You know, he's a guy that's been to the dance, so, you know, who knows better than him?
Right.
So, but you're right. I just think that there was a crisis of confidence there, which is sad. He could still go. He could still be a top guy if he wanted to be. Should we have the opportunity, I'd like to help him do that. I wanted him to do that when we were on TV. I thought it would have been great. I mean, this was at a time when we were getting a tremendous amount of YouTube views. We'd get like 20 or 30,000 views a week. I said to him, I said, when's the last time 20,000 people saw you do anything? You were in WWE.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think that he was downplaying what we were doing, and that kind of made me sad. And I think it was just his own crisis of self-confidence.
Well, one of the other things that was interesting with him, too, is how far he distanced himself from the character he was in WWE.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of people that would, you know, be out there still now doing that same gimmick.
Yeah.
And he, you know, when he came back, he complete polar opposite as to what he did on television.
Yeah, he was doing an 80s guy gimmick for us at one point.
That's right.
Then in the middle of the deal, he just got tired of doing it. He didn't want to do it anymore. Yeah. And that was the end of that. And then we brought him back. I asked him to come back and take the title as a favor. And I said, you know, we're getting ready to go on TV. I mean, who better than you? And, you know, I'm grateful that he did it. I just wish that, you know, he had seen it as the opportunity that I felt that it was. And it's hard to convince people of that sometimes. You know, we're a small business. We're struggling to draw people. We're struggling to keep our heads above water and make it. You know, we have an opportunity to do television. And, you know, it's like, how do you keep them down on the farm after they've seen Perry? You know?
Right.
You know, he's been to the dance. This is small potatoes. I mean, you know, this is, what can I say? You know? We did the best we could with what we had, and I don't apologize for it. You know, I think we did an incredible job. I don't think anybody else could have done what we did with what we had to do it with.
That's for sure.
Well, I just want to say that I miss DC Dillinger. I miss him very much. He left us way too soon. He was an important part of NECW, and I know that NECW was an important part of his life. It warms my heart that we've been able to have that kind of an effect on certain people. You know, to mean something to somebody is its own reward. You know? And as I say, I think one of my proudest accomplishments was giving DC Dillinger the opportunity to be DC Dillinger.
Yeah, definitely.
A big salute to DC. Well, healthy discussion this week. We will do it again next week. So for Joe Matarazzo and Kevin Castro, Sheldon Goldberg, thanks again for listening, everyone. We will see you next week.
The ReGeneration Podcast is a production of New England Championship Wrestling. To send us questions, comments, or feedback, email us at regenerationnecw@gmail.com.